All right, with Hashem's help, we're going to learn today Yevamos Daf Chav Hey. We left off on Daf Chav Daled Amid Beis by the two dots in the middle of the Amid. The Mishnah was speaking about Haniton, if there was a suspicion on someone. So the Mishnah began with someone who was suspected to have had an affair with either a Shivcha or a non-Jewish woman. The Mishnah says even if they become free or if she converts, nevertheless this man should not marry her because it's going to substantiate, give credibility to the suspicion. However, if he married her, then we do not force them to divorce. The Gemara quoted the pasuk in Mishli in which it says, Hased mimcha ikshus peh ulezus fasayim, meaning a person should remove from oneself rumors and not the opposite, do things that would substantiate negative rumors. However, the Mishnah added that if there is a suspicion on a person who, God forbid, is having an affair with a married woman, and that married woman, the Mishnah says, was divorced by her husband, to be clarified in a moment, was it the husband's choice to divorce her, or was it that the Beis Din forced the man to divorce her? We'll see that in a moment. In such a case, says the Mishnah, not only should this suspected adulterer not marry her, but if he married her, then yoitzi, then he has to divorce her. So it comes along the Gemara, and the Gemara says, Omar Rav, that when does the Mishnah say that if the suspected adulterer marries this woman after she was divorced from her husband, obviously, then still he needs to divorce her? That is only ube edim. If there were witnesses that testified that the married woman had the affair, had a relation with this nitan, with this adulterer. In other words, the Beis Din forced her original husband to divorce her. A woman who has a relation with a man other than her husband while she is married becomes asur both lebaal ulebayel, which is why the suspected adulterer, he's not suspected, he has to divorce her. Well, that's a big statement. Now we're not already speaking about a suspicion, we're speaking about witnesses. So Amar Rab Sheshes says, Rab Sheshes, Amina, I say that kinayim v'shachiv Rav Amar lahai shmaitza, that when Rav was dozing and drifting into sleep, did Rav say that our Mishnah is speaking about a case that there were witnesses. Why? Because the Tanya we learned, Hanitan aleish, if a man is suspected of having a relation with a married woman, and the hoitziuha al yadai, and the Beis Din forced her husband to divorce her, and she got divorced, and she married another man, not this suspected or disproven adulterer, and then she gets divorced from this second man. Then says the Braisa, im kanas, that if this original adulterer, this nayev, marries her, lo yoitzi, he shouldn't divorce her. In other words, this Braisa is adding an additional detail, an additional case to our Mishnah regarding if this woman had a marriage with someone else in between the original husband and now with this adulterer. So the Gemara is asking, let's analyze. Hey Chidami, what is the case of the Mishnah? And likewise the original case of the Braisa. If there were witnesses that testified her having this relation with this noyev, with this nitan, with this suspected adulterer, then why would her getting married to someone else in between change anything? Is kiyasar achar?
She's asr la'alma, right?
She's asr labal or labayel, not la'alma. To that boyel la'alma, exactly, forever. Is therefore kiyasi achar va'apikse, if another man comes and marries in between, and therefore he stops the rumor because no one is speaking about them anymore because she married another man. My hava, who cares? It must mean that there are no witnesses here. Elalav delek edim. That it's not a case that there were witnesses. It's just a rumor. And therefore the Mishnah makes sense, the Braisa makes sense. The time of the Asa Acher Va'apikse Lakala. Therefore, when she got divorced from her original husband, the very fact that she didn't marry the Nitan, she didn't marry the suspected adulterer, that made the rumor subside. Oh, she married another person, people forgot about it. There's no rumor anymore. That's why that Braisa says that if later she gets divorced or widowed from this man in between, and eventually she goes to this Nitan, being that no one is speaking about it anymore, and as we explained the Reisha of the Mishnah, quoting the Pasuk in Mishli, that a person shouldn't do something to give credibility to rumors. It's all about a rumor. And don't give credibility to a rumor. That's why she can stay married to that person. But if not for her getting married to another man in between, then take mafkinon, even though there's no Eidim. Kasha against Rav. Amalach Rav says, Rav, no. The way I'm explaining, it's all about Eidim. So the kasha now is the only criterion is with witnesses. We force this woman to divorce the man who was a proven boyel, who was a proven adulterer. And if there's no witnesses, then even if she did not marry anyone in between, then we will not force her to divorce. And v'hachi ka'amar, and the chiddush of this braisa is to tell you that v'af agav de'asi acher v'afseke l'kolom, that even if another man got married in between, the braisa obviously is speaking about a case, according to Rav, that there are no edim, which is why eventually they don't force him and her to divorce. The chiddush is that still lechatchila don't get married. That was the whole chiddush of the Brais. So Rav is standing his ground. With Eidim, you force them to divorce. Without Eidim, you don't force them to divorce. But lechatchila, you shouldn't get married. Says the Brais, additional chiddush, even if she married another man in between, still lechatchila don't get married to this noyev. But if you get married and there's no Eidim, then you don't force them to divorce. Meisvei, another...
She did not get married in between.
No, nothing changes.
Force her to divorce?
No. If there's Eidim, yes. If there's no Eidim, no. It's all about Eidim or not Eidim. Meisvei, next Braisa, when do we say that we force the noyev, the suspected adulterer, to divorce her if they got married? Says this Braisa, only b'she'ein labanim, if she doesn't have children from the original marriage. Avol yesh labanim, from the original marriage. Imagine. And now you are forcing her to divorce this suspected adulterer. People are going to say, why did the Beis Din force them to get divorced? Aha! It means that for sure they were non-kosherly together while she was married to her first husband. Now that is already going to give a suspicion, that's going to put a question mark regarding the kashrus of the children she had with her first husband. And therefore, lo yiseitzei. And again, it challenges the Gemara on Rav, that ve'im bo'u eidei tumah, Rav's qualification of this din. You only force them to divorce if there's witnesses. You know something? If there are witnesses, what difference would it make if she had or not children from the original marriage? Afilo yesh labanim, or kamabanim from the first marriage. If witnesses say she had a relation with a noyev, asur labal, v'asur laboyel. So again, this must prove that Eidim is not the case of our Mishnah. The Mishnah is only speaking about a suspicion. And here the Braisa is adding that even though there was a suspicion, and even just from a suspicion, you would force her to divorce this suspected noyev. The Braisa adds that if she had children from the original marriage, there, don't do that. No, answers the Gemara, Rav stands his ground. And Rav, Moiki, Lahal, Masnisin, Rav is going to say that our Mishnah is also speaking about a case that she has children. And our Mishnah is speaking about a case like he said that there were Eidim. In other words, what is Rav saying like this? Rav is saying that if there is no Eidim, but there are no children, then you force them to divorce. If you have no Eidim, but you have children from the first marriage, then you say we don't want to force the noyev, or the suspected adulterer, to divorce his wife. There's no Eidim. She had children from the first marriage, you're going to be moitzi laz on those children. However, if there are...
They forced the first husband, right?
I'm sorry?
They did force her to divorce the first husband.
Well, no, we're going to get that in a second. Obviously, if there's no Eidim, you can't force. That goes hand in hand. And that's going to be a question we'll see in a moment. The wording in the Mishnah, our Gita says, Hoitziuha. Hoitziuha means that they forced her. Hoitzia means he divorced her. So it goes hand in hand. If you say the Rav is learning our Mishnah that there were Eidim, then you forced the original husband to divorce. If it's only a rumor, then you'll have to read in the Mishnah, Hoitzia, he divorced her. You can't force a man to divorce his wife if there's only a rumor, according to certain opinions, as we'll get to in a moment. We're in the middle of the sugi. And now the Gemara is asking, why what was kvetching Rav? That our Mishnah is speaking about that there are kids, and there are Eidim. And therefore, the time of the Ike Eidim Afkinon, but the like Eidim, if there wouldn't be witnesses, but there would be children, then Loim Afkinon. Why can't we learn Pashut? Why doesn't Rav learn the Mishnah that there are no children? And like we said before, according to this answer, that according to Rav, even if there's no Eidim, if you don't have children, then you force this suspected Noyev to divorce her. So why do you say that's the case of our Mishnah? Afagav Daleka Eidim. So Rav answers, Masnis and Kashi say, I had a question in the wording of the Mishnah, that why did the Mishnah use the words Hoitzi Uha? They forced the original husband to divorce her. If the Mishnah is speaking about a case that there's no Eidim, then the wordings in the Mishnah should be Hoitzia. He divorced her. Pashut, a man is married to a woman. There are rumors that his wife, God forbid, is having an affair with another man. He can't take the rumors. He divorces her. He divorces her. And again, according to Rav, according to this interpretation, even if there's no Eidim, if she didn't have children with the first husband, she marries the Noyev, which she shouldn't, says the Mishnah, you make them divorce. But that's not the case of the Mishnah. Since the Mishnah said, Hoitzi Uha, she was forced, it means that there are Eidim. And if there are Eidim, that's the Chiddush of the Mishnah, even if she had children from the first husband, even there you would force her to divorce the Noyev. There's Eidim. Asa Labal, Asa Labayl. Good. Now the Gemara says, let's finish inside. Ella, Kol Hoitziyu Bebezdin. It's speaking about that she was divorced by a Bezdin. Bezdin be'edim hudamafki. Bezdin will only divorce a man to divorce his wife if there's actual proof that she had an affair, God forbid, with another man. That's one approach. Or I'll tell you, again, Rav is standing his ground. Rav is going to hold that our Mishnah is speaking about Eidim. And according to Rav, let's take it a step back. If there are no Eidim, then even if there are no children, according to Rav, if there's no Eidim, the Noyev shouldn't have married her. Like Hanitan with a Shivcha, Avodas Kachavim, and she converts. Don't do something that substantiates a rumor. But if the man married her, you can't force him to divorce. The braises that imply otherwise.
Kids without kids,
That's right. That's the second answer now. According to Rav, only Eidim. If there's no Eidim, you never force them to divorce. But that's only our Mishnah. However, there's another Tana, there's another opinion. There's another opinion that will hold that even if there's a rumor, you force them to divorce. Let's read it. Maybe these braisas that we're trying to contradict Ravin, it goes according to the opinion of Rabbi. The Tanya. What's the braisa? Roichel. Roichel, to make it very clear, is not a perfumer. Roichel is a peddler perfumer. It's a whole different thing.
Someone that sells perfume.
Someone that's a peddler. It's not about the perfume, it's about the peddler. People that go into people's homes to sell merchandise. So it gives them access to... there's already a challenge for them to keep a distance. So what happens if a man is entering his home, and when he enters his home, he sees Roichel Yotzei, the perfume peddler is leaving, and Veisha and his wife, Chigeres Besinor, she's putting on her undergarments. So he didn't see an act, but he saw something that it's called a davar mechuar, and as we'll see in this Gemara, that we're putting on the same track davar mechuar and hanitan. Doesn't look good. A rumor. Here he saw something that looks very bad. Amar Rebbe says, Rebbe, hoyel umechur hadavar. Since he saw something that's obscene, he saw something that's not nice, Teitze, he should divorce her. And again, as we're putting together, that we're saying that according to Rebbe, that whenever there's a mechur hadavar, Teitze, the same reason why we tell the husband you have to divorce your wife, asur labal, asur labayil. You see, it goes together. So according to Rebbe, when there's just a rumor, if the rumor is enough to force the husband to divorce her, then you force the noyev to divorce her as well, no eidim with no bandim. So those braises go according to Rebbe, and our Mishnah is not Rebbe. Our Mishnah holds, Rav holds, you can only force a divorce when there's actual Eidim. Then you force the husband to divorce, and then if the other man, with whom there are Eidim, that he had a relation with this woman, if he marries her, force him to divorce as well.
So the braises that discuss whether there was children
or not,
whether she got married to someone else in between.
Very good, very good. All that is only according to Rebbe. It's only according to Rebbe. Very good. Then you take those things into account. Correct. That's correct. You shouldn't have married, but you don't divorce because there's no actual evidence. On the other hand, Rebbe holds that the husband should divorce her. That if not for a marriage in between, if not for banim, then the noiv should divorce her. No, substantial evidence is enough. Let's finish reading this.
That this guidance about getting divorced, what is that? What is it exactly? Is that she has to?
Yes, she has to. She has to. No one. Very good. No one. When a man, God forbid, loses trust in his husband, that's the whole parsha soita in his wife, and the man says he can't be with her. No one is going to force him to be with her. Obviously, we're speaking about Beis Din telling the man, according to the Rebbe, if it's mechor hadavar, you have to divorce her. This is serious stuff. We don't paskin that way. But that's Shitas Rebbe. Let's go on.
Just this whole thing about did she marry in between, or
yes,
did the first one have children or whatever?
Yes.
End of the day, there's a metzias here, and let's say she knows what that metzias is. Maybe no one else knows.
Correct.
Right? So end of the day, shouldn't that decide whether she could stay married or not?
Well, we don't know. The halacha doesn't know the metzias. That's the whole thing. And what she says won't have any halachic validity. God willing, we'll get to it soon. And daf chaf in the bottom. Then ein adam meisam atzmei rasha. That means if a person admits, I had an affair, we don't necessarily believe them, halachically, to demand a divorce. We don't trust you. A person does not believe halachically to say that they did something that makes them into a rasha. Let's go on. Other examples. Roik l'mayla min hakilo. People used to have nettings, certain types of garments, materials that used to go around their beds, like a canopy. And if there was spittle in the inside of the canopy, which would give some type of evidence that someone was laying facing up and spit up into the canopy. Right, the last line of the Rashi. Right? Mi zorak haroik lamayla, ki im hashoichev panav lamayla, hilkach zin sazu. Again, another type of circumstantial evidence. And again, Amar Rebbe, hoyel umechor hadavar, since it's obscene, teitze, you force them to divorce, daf chafei amad aleph, next final example, that min olim hafuchim tachas hamita. There's a whole machlekes exactly what that means. That one of the Rishonim explain is that then the floors were earthen floors, in which you can see footprints. So there was a way of turning one's shoes upside down, which would, so to say, cover over the footsteps. So the husband realized that there was an effort made not to see any footsteps. Why would you want to do that? Again, Amar Rebbe, hoyel umechor hadavar teitze. So now the Gemara says, like the Gemara just wants to clarify, what's this shoes turned upside down? Min olam hafuchim lichzi deman nino. Why don't we see who they are? So the Gemara says, that the place of the shoes were turned over. Other Rishonim learn is that people used to have a little place where to leave their shoes. And people really stuck to their place. So he notices that his wife's shoes wasn't his place. So why was his wife's shoes in his place? Aha, that's because the place that is normally used for his wife's shoes was used for someone else's shoes. Or something that in that society, people who had a certain practice, the surroundings, the physical things on the ground gave evidence, so to say, that something unkosher happened. And again, Amar Rebbe, hoyel umechor hadavar teitze. And now the Gemara says, typical Gemara, hilchas kavase derav, that only if there are actual edim that she had a relation with another man, only then do you force her to divorce. And hilchas kavase derebi, and Allah is like Rebbe, that if there's circumstantial evidence, if there's mechor hadavar, then you force them to divorce. It's a contradiction. So the Gemara says, kasha hilchasa hilchasa. The Gemara says, like kasha. Ha, b'kala the pasik. When the rumor stopped, we'll see, then we are more lenient, and only eidim will be the cause of a divorce. When are we machmer like Rebbe? When bekala deli pasik. Means in halacha we take in account a rumor. If there's a rumor that's not stopping, the Gemara clarifies further very important details. Kala deli pasik. If there is a rumor that's not stopping, then even though veleka edim, being that there's a rumor, that's Rebbe Kirebi, then you make them get divorced, and subsequently, if she gets divorced and she marries the Noyev, you make them also get divorced. It goes hand in hand. If the first husband has to get divorced, because you believe that they actually live together, however, if Kala the Pasik, and Rashi adds something very important, look inside Rashi, what's the meaning of a rumor stopping? That a counter rumor is heard. In other words, just a rumor stopping, according to Rashi, is not enough. It's that these rumors travel quick. So the parties who are claiming innocence right away counter it. Sometimes it's important to do it. Sometimes countering a rumor is the worst thing. The very fact that you have to counter it gives it some type of credibility. But sometimes when it's already out there, you have to make a protest. You make a counter rumor. So the definition, according to Rashi, of a kala de pasik isn't just that the rumor stopped, is that a counter rumor came out against it. Then only if you have Eidim, like Rav, then you force them to divorce. And now the Gemara has to clarify something else here. What's pshat the rumor stopped? Like how long can a rumor go on until you need a counter rumor? So the Gemara says, "V'kala deli pasik at kama." Amar Abaye says, "Abaye amar li aim." My mother, as we said many times, Abaye's mother means the woman who raised him. He was an orphan. Abaye is an abbreviation of Asher B'cha Yerucham Yasem. He was a Yasem. So he says that Dumei Demasa, that suspected ones in a city, a rumor there is a day and a half. And a counter rumor would mean in a city that if within the day and a half you heard a rumor like that, there's a rumor that's not true, that is a counter rumor. And now
the rumor went on for a year and then it was
not good. Listen, not good. You ask a Rav when these things happen, but these are big shilas. And we also, you can also imagine, like we're learning Gemara, to apply it in halacha. What rumor is called a rumor? Everything has nuances. What counter rumor is called a counter rumor? Let's get the concepts we get clear from the Gemara. And now the Gemara adds a few qualifications. In other words, Ela deli pasik beini ubeini. Aval pasik beini ubeini ha pasak. When we speak about a counter rumor doesn't have to last for a long time. A counter rumor means that if during the first day and a half, for a little while, there was some type of counter rumor, that cut the day and a half. But we'll see later. But if later the rumor goes back for another day and a half, the negative rumor, then it stands. Another thing, when does a counter rumor have credibility? If we're dealing with an adulterer, we're dealing with a woman who no one is afraid of, so to say. But what happens if the adulterer, let's say, is a man who many people fear? And now there's this rumor going on him that he had an affair with a married woman. And there's a counter rumor. You can say, you know why there's a counter rumor? The counter rumor was made because people are afraid of him. So then the counter rumor loses its credibility. Another qualification. When do we say b'chlal that a rumor is something substantial? Whether it is substantial enough like Rebbe that you make the couple get divorced, or even if not like Rebbe, when do you take a rumor into account? Ela deleka oivim. Only when this adulterer or the woman don't have enemies. If there are people who are hated, then you can say, you know who made the rumor? The haters made my enemies made such a rumor. So all these things have to be taken into account, but these are good principles to remember. Now the Gemara concludes just with one question. We learned in a Mishnah, in Mesechtas Gittin, Hamoitzi es ishte mishum shem ra. If a man whose wife got a bad reputation, there was rumors about one's wife, and we're not going into, there was no Eidim, the Beis Din didn't force him to divorce her, but he can't take it. So he goes ahead and he says, I'm divorcing you. So the Mishnah there teaches us an interesting din. Once a man divorces her, the original husband, lo yachzir, is never allowed to remarry her. Now, if a man divorces his wife, she marries another man, and then becomes widow or divorced, no first husband can remarry her. That's not the case here. A man divorces his wife. Let's speak about a rumor. We don't allow him to remarry her because of the following. A rumor is only a rumor. There will be certain times that even if halachically a counter rumor has to happen within a day and a half. But let's forget about the halacha for a moment. Let's just speak about human nature. A man divorces his wife. There's a rumor. She marries another man. Later on, the man, the original husband, finds out that the rumor is false. There was oivim, there was an enemy, or what have you. And he goes to the Beis Din and he tells the Beis Din, I want you to know, I only divorced my wife because of the rumor. I know now that the rumor is nishtamis. It's a terrible thing that, because theoretically, sometimes at least, the whole get can become retroactively nullified. It was a get betos. And if the get is betos, imagine if she married another man and she had children with the other man, then those children are mamzedim. So in order for a husband never to be in the position of power of saying, had I known, I never would have, the Beis Din tells the husband, why are you divorcing her? Because there's a rumor? You better make sure that those rumors are true. Because if you will divorce your wife, no matter what, rabbinically, you can never marry her back. Oh. And likewise, if a man divorces his wife because she made a vow. Now, certain vows, it's very not common today, but a woman can make a vow that would make living with her almost impossible. And a man tells his wife, listen, I can't live with you in such a vow. Now, the truth is that there are ways of nullifying a vow. There's called hafaras nedarim, that the husband has the power. On the day that he heard his wife making a vow, if it affects their relationship, he can retroactively nullify it. Then even if the husband doesn't do it on the day of, she can go into a Beis Din, or to go into a yachid mumcha, to an expert, and she can do hataras nedarim. So the same thing, a man is divorcing his wife because she made a vow. So the Chachamim were afraid that later on she's going to marry someone else. Then the husband will wake up and chap, she could have nullified the vow. And then he will say, had I known that she could have nullified the vow, I never would have given her a divorce. So the rabbis tell men, you're divorcing your wife because she made a neder. Listen, try to resolve it. And if you can't resolve it and you're going to divorce her, no, you're never allowed to marry her back. Now, what's the kasha in our Mishnah? So the Mishnah now is putting together that over there's a concept of a man having there's a bad reputation with the wife. Once he divorces her, the divorce, so to say, substantiates the rumor, because he would not divorce her unless for sure the rumor is true, and the giving of the get that substantiated the rumor makes it as if for sure she had an affair. So the Gemara is making a correlation or a question against, if that would be the case, then the noiv should never be allowed to marry her, and he should always have to divorce her. It should always have to be that way. Because the very fact that the husband divorced her and he cannot marry her back, that means the rumor is true, so to say. The Gemara is going to right away say it's not correct. The husband divorcing her is substantiating the rumor. But her marrying him or not marrying him doesn't substantiate the rumor like the husband divorcing her. So the Gemara says, Shalach le Rabba barafun le Rabba Rav Nachman, Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu. He asked him a question. Kanas mahu sheyoitzi. If the original husband marries her back, not the adulterer, if the original husband marries her back, does he have to divorce her? Armalei, so he compared it to our Mishnah. He says, we learned that our Mishnah, if there's a rumor regarding a suspected adulterer having a relation with a married woman, and v'hoitzi'ah, or v'hoitzi'uah, whichever girsa, and the husband divorces her, then the Mishnah says a suspected adulterer should not marry her. And if he married her, what's the din? Yoitzi. So likewise over here, if the husband, the original husband, married her back, yoitzi. So the Gemara says it's mamish the opposite. Amalei midami. Over there, hoitzi'uah. Over there, first of all, the wording is hoitzi'uah. Our Mishnah, there was Adam, according to Rav. Since there was Adam, that's the way we explained it. Of course, it's not a suspected adulterer. If the proven adulterer marries her, he has to divorce her. But over here in the Mishnah in Gittin, it says hoitzi'uah. The Gemara says the reason why he compared one case to the other, because he had the girsa. In our Mishnah, that our Mishnah spoke about a case where the first husband divorced her because of the rumor, not because of Edom. Still the Gemara says, Vakati midami. Hachi means in Gittin. Baal, the husband remarried her. Hach, I mean here in Gittin, the husband remarried her. Hasim in our Mishnah over there, the boil remarried her. Amarle, still, Shaper Dami Adadi. Hachi Amar Abanan Lo Yichnois, just like over here, the Chachamim said, no marriage should happen, and if the rabbinic suggestion was violated, Yoitzi, Hachinami, Amar Rabbanan Lo Yachsev, we should say Yoitzi. So the Gemara says, no, Veloihi. Hasam over there, Alume, Alme Lakalam. Over there, meaning in our Mishnah, if the suspected adulterer marries her, what does that marriage do? That marriage in itself substantiates the rumor. You see, her husband divorced her. Who did she go marry? That man. That's why the Mishnah says Yoitzi. But over here in Gittin, the husband Taka shouldn't have remarried her. But his very act of remarrying her takes away the credibility of the rumor. Why is he remarrying her? Fakert, because he discovered that the rumor was a false rumor. Hachi over here, and people are going to say that Kamle Bekala, that he looked into the rumor, Vilese, and he found it to be unsubstantial. So one case is not connected to the other, so he rejected the certainty and the linkage regarding if he violated there in Gittin and remarried her. Question, does he or does he not have to divorce her, is a question that's standing. Let's continue with the next Mishnah.
We'll have the question.
Yeah, now the next Mishnah, as well as the following Mishnah, is going to all speak about the same theme. The Pasuk says in Mishli, Haser mimcha ikshuspe, remove from yourself the curving of the mouth. Remove from yourself uluzus fasaim, the bending of the lips. Don't do things that will substantiate bad rumors. So based on this, says the Mishnah the following, if a man is bringing a divorce document from overseas, and God willing, we will learn him at the beginning of Masechtas Gittin, in those days of the Mishnah, the Batei Dinim out of Israel were not knowledgeable in many dinim in Gittin, important ones, which is, for example, that a get that's written has to be written l'shmai, u'l'shma, u'l'shem gerushin. The get has to be written for that specific man, for that specific wife. It has to be written not for training. It has to be written l'shem, using it for the get. And if it wasn't written l'shmai, u'l'shma, u'l'shem gittin, even though the document looks perfect, it's not kosher. So therefore, since people were not that knowledgeable out of Eretz Yisrael, Mimidina Sayam, so the Chachamim made a takana, that when the husband who was living overseas, who was divorcing his wife who was then in Israel, who wrote the get, Mimidina Sayam, who sent the get to his wife to become ex-wife in Israel, they used to interrogate the shliach. They used to ask him these questions. Was it written correctly or not correctly? To open up this questioning, they said that the shliach has to declare befanai nechtav ubefanai nechtam, that I was there. I was there when they wrote it. I was there that they signed it. You were there. So how did it look like? What did the Bezdin do? Did they do A? Did they do B? Etc. So for shliach, and one shliach is believed. One shliach is believed to bring the get Medina Sayam, and he declared befanai nechtav befanai nechtam. And now this shliach wants to marry this divorced woman. Says the Mishnah, don't do that. Lo yisa es ishtoi. Why? Same thing. It doesn't look good. It might appear like, what will be the worst case scenario? That really the get wasn't a kosher get. He wanted to marry this woman. He brought a get and he said, Yaltzos kosher v'yosher, to marry her. So even though it's probably doesn't work that way, but it's gonna create such a rumor. Don't do things that will make such a rumor happen, or that would substantiate such a rumor. Another example. Midda any question regarding davar shebe'erva, any halachic question that affects marriage, divorce, needs to be substantiated with two witnesses. Ein davar shebe'erva pachos mishnayim. However, the rabbis made a big exception for those of us who learned the daily Rambam. We just learned this yesterday, and that is the following: that if a man died and there's only one witness that's testifying to his death, normally one aid is not going to be enough. The Chachamim, because of the concern of this woman remaining an aguna, A woman will remain bound. How will she bound? Because the husband is not there. If he would be there, either they would be together or they would get divorced. He's not there. We don't know for sure that he died. She cannot marry any other man. So the Chachamim were lenient and they allowed for her to accept the testimony of one. However, there's a big chumrah at the end, that if she who was listening to this one man, one woman saying that her husband died, if she marries someone else, and if eventually her first husband shows up, she gets penalized. She gets penalized that not only can she never be with her new husband, she can also never be with her old husband. Why can't she be with her old husband? That's also a chumrah midrabanan. Midairaisa, if a woman is forced to be with another man, there's an oinus, as long as she's not married to a kohen, she can be with her husband. When she thought, because of wrong, false information, that her husband died and she was with another man, that's not called b'mezid, it's called an oinus. Nevertheless, the Chachamim made this balance, that they were mekel in the beginning. You can get married based only on one witness. On the other hand, at the end, if your husband comes back, you're going to pay the price. And therefore, a woman never only listened to one witness. She was afraid. One witness gave her the permissibility to marry. A woman for sure would do her own investigation. And maybe what she would find wouldn't be things that are considered halachic proofs, but she would find more substance to give her the feeling that her husband Taka died and she can get married to another man. So if this man who's saying that your husband died, he cannot marry her. Same thing. Doesn't look good. Or likewise, if this man is saying, I killed your husband, why would you want to marry him? Kasha, but the Mishnah or haragnuhu, the Gemara is going to clarify.
She hired him to kill him.
We're going to erase that from here. Haragnu, we killed your husband means that people killed him and I saw it. That's the way the Gemara is going to explain it later. So all the same, lo yisas ishtoi, this man who came with this testimony cannot marry her. Says Rabbi Yehuda, he agrees, but he adds, he says, 1 second. When a man says, your husband died, good, she is free to marry anyone else. That is the leniency that the Chachamim gave, that a woman can believe one witness to marry someone else, with the knowledge that if the husband appears, she'll be usher to both husbands. But when a man says, I killed your husband, that whole testimony is worth nothing, says Rabbi Yehuda. Why not? Because what is he saying? I'm a murderer. That means I'm a rasha. I'm not even a kosher witness. And therefore, it's not only that she cannot marry him, she cannot marry anyone. Atazai, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, haraktiv. When the man says, I killed him, lo ysinasei ishtoi, period. She can't marry anyone. However, haragnuhu, we killed him, then she could get married. Not to him, but she can get married. The Gemara is going to right away ask, we killed, is also he's a rasha. So again, the Gemara is going to clarify, we killed means that there was a group of people that killed him and I was there. I was there when he was killed. And that Chachamim, and we'll go clarify it in a moment. But before we get to this machlokes, the Gemara asks another interesting question, or makes an interesting inference. Taima, the Mishnah begins speaking about a man, a shliach, who brings the get from overseas, where you have this takanas Chachamim that he must say befanei nechtav or befanei nechtam. The alei kasam chinan, we need his testimony to substantiate the get, which is why the Mishnah says he cannot marry this just divorced woman. Avol me'eretz Yisrael, but what happens if a shliach brings a get from one beis din in Israel to another beis din in Israel? He doesn't have to say anything, but he brought the get. So what's the worst case scenario? If this person is mamash noyev, could be he made a false get. Can also be he's the one that brought the get. The lav oleika samchinon, but if he brings a get from Israel, since we don't need him to testify b'fanei nechtav, etc., then gishas ishtoi. Ask the Gemara 1 second. V'ha meis, from the next case in the Mishnah, where a man says your husband died, and we know the lav aleika samchinon. She doesn't fully. That's the key word which will resolve it. She doesn't fully rely on him, like we learned, like we just spoke out by heart, that Isha, that even after a woman hears the testimony from one, knowing the chumrah sheichmiru aleh b'seifa, daika u'minseba, she will investigate. A woman doesn't just, I heard you said it, good, I'm getting married. She investigates. So it's not that it's fully based on this aid. And nevertheless, how do you reconcile it? So the Gemara says very simple. Hassam over there by Mace, even though she doesn't fully rely on him, she does her own investigation, but his testimony is the base. Wording in the Gemara, the lekik sava, there's no written document. How do we know that he died? Because of this aid. This aid can never marry her, even if she does her own investigation and she has other proofs. However, over here, when it comes to a person bringing a get, since ikak sava, since there is a document, if it's brought from Eretz Yisrael, at the end of the day, you have a document. And the document is a Maisa Beis Din. And the Beis Din here can independently verify the validity of the document. So that's why he can marry her. When can he not marry her? If he brings it Medinas Hayam, when you need his testimony of B'fanei Nechtav or B'fanei Nechtam.
So then it doesn't matter if it's from Israel or out of Israel, and with get it does not.
Correct. The Tran, like we learned in the Mishnah, Ma Bein Get Lemisa Shaksav Moichiach. The Mishnah that we're referring to is the Mishnah that's speaking about the following. Even though the Chachamim they gave credibility to one witness to say your husband died, and that one witness, first of all, can also be people that normally are not kosher witnesses, including women, but there are certain women that cannot even be the one witness. And who would they be? They would be women that are natural enemies. For example, a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. So if a mother-in-law comes and tells her daughter-in-law, my son, your husband died, you don't believe her. Because maybe she wants for this woman to marry someone else, then she'll pull her son out of the box, and she'll say, you can't marry him? And that goes to a co-wife and other women who are called tzadas. They are natural, not friends, adversaries. However, even a woman who's not allowed to say testimony that your husband died, she could bring a get, even Nimidina Sayam. Why? Because at the end of the day, even when you need your testimony, b'fanei nechtam, you have a document. It's not exactly the same case here, because here we are differentiating between overseas and Israel, but the logic is the same logic. In other words, there's a big difference between fully relying on someone and only partially relying on someone. Our Mishnah is using this logic to differentiate that if you come with a get Medinas Hayam, then you cannot marry. The Shliach cannot marry her. But the Shliach who brings a get from Israel could marry this woman because you Bechlal didn't need him. Let's go right. And there is a document. Next, then the Mishnah says, Mace, if the man says, Tanakama, that your husband died, or if he says, I killed him, or if he says, we killed him, so the Tanakama says he cannot marry the wife. Right? Says the Gemara, who ninu de lo yisas ishtay, hola acher sinasay. The Gemara is just clarifying the machlokes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, by I killed him, she can't marry anyone. But the Tanakama holds, if the man says, I killed him, you believe him that he's dead. 1 second. In fact, the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef said, this din, that ein adam meitzim atzmei rasha, was said in the following case. Ploini riva'ani lo einasi. If a man says, I was raped by another man, but he's saying I was raped. It was against my will. Do you believe him? Well, halachically, don't forget, the act of rape, sodomizing, is a capital punishment. In order to kill someone because they did something which demands a capital punishment, you have to have 2 Eidim. He himself is one of the Eidim. Hu va'achar mitztarfun lahargay. Why? Because he's a kosher person. What is he saying? It was done against my will. But if a man comes to a Beis Din with another witness, and he says, so-and-so had a relation with me. A man had a relation with a man. Capital punishment. The person who was part of that relation is no longer a witness, says Rabbi Yosef, because he's a Rasha. The moment he's a Rasha, you don't believe anything that he says. Liritzaini Rashahu and Vahatayra Amra, that al Tashes Yadcha im Rasha Lihiyois 8 Chamas, even though Chamas normally speaks about monetary non-kosher behavior, Rabbi Yosef says it goes to any behavior that makes a person into a Rasha. Kasha against the Chachamim. How can you argue with Rabbi Yehuda? If a guy says, I killed your husband, you're a Rasha. The moment you're a Rasha, you're B'chalal not a 8. You don't even have 1 8. And v'chitemin, and if you're going to answer that Shaina ein edus isha, that the whole thing of us believing one witness is all a leniency the Chachamim made that the woman should not become an aguna. So maybe they were even lenient if a person is a rasha, that the akila barabanan to believe only one. So maybe even when a person is a rasha midah ayraisa, so the Gemara says no, that Omar Ramanashe, turning the page, that Gazlan did divrayim, that if a person is considered a rabbinic thief, for example, if a person gambles with Jews, gamble of going, Bechlal doesn't go into this category, but gambling with Jewish people is a rabbinic prohibition because people who put the money on the table are only doing so with the kavan of winning. And when they lose, they don't fully relinquish their money. So the person who wins is taking money that's not fully his. It's considered a gazlan midivreim. So a gazlan midivreim is kosher le'edus isha. He could be that one witness. But Rav Menashe said clearly that a gazlan, the divrei Torah, is pasur le'edus isha. And we're not differentiating between a gazlan and a murderer. The point is that if a person did an act for which midah ayraisa they're considered a rasha, according to Rabbi Yosef, they should be totally disqualified. How can the Chachamim say he cannot marry her, but she can marry someone else? How? The aid is a rasha. So Neymar, Rav Menashe, the Amar Rabbi Yehuda, are we forced to say that Rav Menashe holds like Rabbi Yehuda? In other words, the Chachamim will hold that even a person who's a rasha midah raisa could be an aid? Question mark. Does it have to be that way? So the Gemara says it doesn't have to be the way. First of all, Rav Menashe says, "Ano the amni afilu l'Rabbanan." I stand my ground. A person who's a gazlan midah raisa is not a good aid. However, v'tama the Rabbanan hachi k'derav. Not like Rabbi Yosef. Rava and Rabbi Yosef argue, and we will learn this, God willing, many times. It's an amazing concept. We're learning quick, so we'll have to just quickly say it. The wording of this inyan is called palginon dibura. When a person makes a statement, there are some times that we accept half of their statement and we reject half of their statement. This is a very interesting halachic concept. It's not always either you're saying the truth or you're lying. Why would we accept or reject half? Being that there's a rule of ein adam mesim atzmei rasha, a person doesn't have the power to say something that will make him or her into a wicked person. So when a person made a statement, for example, let's go back to the case of ploini riva'ani l'retzaini. Someone sodomized me with my consent. We don't hear the words to my consent because those words have no halachic meaning, because you cannot make a statement that disqualifies you. But we do accept the first part of your statement, Poloini Riva'ani, or in this case, I killed your husband. No, there's a concept that Eidus Shabbatla Miktsasa Batla Kula. Eidus Shabbatla Miktsasa Batla Kula means that once the Beis Din accepted a testimony, and later they find out that part of it is not true, then they disqualify all of it. We're not speaking about that at all. Palginan Debura means that from the outset, Beis Din doesn't even hear that words that halacha doesn't allow you to hear. Lahavdil, in the courts, people say something, and if it wasn't done with the right procedure, so the judge tells the jury, erase those words. The same person who said A said B. If it wasn't said kahalacha, lahavdil by them, that it was not said. This is taken from that concept of Palginan Debura. So coming back over here, maybe Rav Menashe holds like the Chachamim. It could be that way. And if a person is taka apostle, if we know him independently to be a apostle, a person midoraisa or rasha, he cannot be a witness to say your husband died. In our Mishnah, we are hearing him say your husband died. When he says I was the one that did it, we don't accept that part. Palgin and Dibur. That Rava says Adam Karav Eitzel Atzmai. God says you can't accept testimony from a relative. I'm a relative to myself. The Ein Adam Meisam Atzmai Rasha.
But if you don't accept that, then why would he not be able to marry her?
Because of a rumor and something else. It's not about me murdering her. The witness that is saying that your husband died should not be the one.
Part that he was murdered. So now you can go marry someone else.
But not the aid. But not the one who brought it, because it doesn't look nice. And also in the reverse, Rabbi Yosef, who doesn't hold of Rava, Rabbi Yosef holds that loy palgin and dibura. Either you believe him or you don't believe him. He holds Rabbi Yosef has to be like Rabbi Yehuda, right? Because you can't believe him. So even here, Rabbi Yosef will say, my statement doesn't have to be like Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Menashe said that if a person is pasul midoraisa, you don't believe him even for Eidas Isha. Rabbi Yosef doesn't have to hold to that. Another Amar Afil Rabbanan. V'shanei Eidas Isha seems takila Rabbanan. Like we explained, mitoich shechumra shechamarta la b'seifa ikila ba b'tchilasa. And I will hold that even if it's pasul midoraisa, true, Rabbi Yosef is saying that Rav Menashe has to be according to Rabbi Yehuda. But Rav Menashe is going to say, here's a chayin, I can hold Palgina Dibura. Anyways, it's not lav dafka connected. Let's go weiter. Now, what has to be clarified is when the Mishnah says, haraktiv, I killed him, or we killed him. So Rabbi Yehuda says, I killed him, you killed him? She cannot marry anyone. We killed him, she can get married. What's the difference? Maishna haraktiv, or maishna haragnuhu. Both of them is a man saying that he did the sin of murder, for which we don't believe it altogether. He's a puzzle, right? That's what Rabbi Yosef explained. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda, no. The meaning of haragnuhu is not that we killed him, meaning I was part of it. I was there when they killed him. And vehotanya, this is more benichusa. And like we learned the following, a story, and there also we have to say the same thing, substantiating the answer we gave here. That Amrullah le Rabbi Yehuda. This is the following question that was asked from Rabbi Yehuda. Ma'aseh b'listim echad. There was once a story that there was a crook, it was a ganef, a listim, wasn't just a ganef, it was an armed bandit. Those were also murderers. Sheyatzel li harik, that the Goyish court caught him, and they were taking him to be killed. The Megizas Kapoitkia, in the crossroads of the city of Kapoitkia. Obviously this is important, I just don't know why. For Amar Lahem, and before he got killed, this is a Jew who's getting killed, so he says, L'chu imrula la'eshes Shimon ben Kain, do me a favor. He did like his last kind gesture. Before they kill me, notify the wife of Shimon ben Kain, who was an aguna, because she had no idea where her husband is, notify her, Ani harakti es baila. I killed her husband biknisasi lilud, many years ago when I was entering Lud, or when he was entering Lud. So they asked Rabbi Yehuda, can you believe such a person? You know, you can say that a man, right before he's dying, L'chayr is trying to clean out as much as he could. He said, yeah, you believe him. But how can you believe him? Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah said that once a person is saying testimony that he's a Rasha, you don't believe it at all. So Amar Lahem Misham Raya. There's no proof over there that you believe him. So they asked Rabbi Yehuda, if according to you, you don't believe the husband, why did they believe him? So Rabbi Yehuda answered, there's no proof from over there. Because he didn't say, the guy who was getting killed, I killed him. He said, I was with my chevre when my chevre killed him, but I wasn't involved. That's the same meaning here in the Mishnah of hargenuhu. The Gemara says, v'halistim ktani. 1 second. If he himself was not a murderer, the story was the chapta listim. So it means shenitfas alidei listiyois. Like Rashi says, the Goyish governments, they don't need to have the same type of proof that a Beis Din needs. And there was a lot of circumstantial evidence. He was part of a group of bandits. He never killed anyone. We don't have evidence that he ever killed anyone. He was being killed because he was being killed together with his group. They were taking him to kill him. So the Gemara says, so what? And v'katli him because there was a lot of circumstantial evidence. Bottom line, hargenuhu means that if a man says that I was amongst a group of people who killed him, not that I killed him. Next Mishnah, continuing with the same theme, don't awaken rumors, bad rumors. So what will be the case over there? Hachacham sha'asar es ha'isha b'neder al bayla. As Rashi explains, a woman, at least sometimes, who makes a vow, I vow that my husband should never be allowed to have hana'ah from me. Or I vow that I will not have any benefit from my husband. She makes a vow that if the vow takes hold, the couple is not allowed to be physically together. Whenever a couple married is not allowed to be together halachically, they have to get divorced. Now, Like we mentioned before, when a woman makes a vow, on the day that she made a vow, there's something called hafaras nedarim. The husband can nullify it. A vow that affects him. This is a vow that affects him. If the husband heard it, did not nullify it on the day that he heard it, then there's a concept called hataras nedarim. You have to nullify it in front of a beis din or in front of a chacham mumcha, expert. But when you nullify such a vow, it's not that you go in front of the court and say, here's a chayin court, I made a vow, nullify it. It doesn't work that way. You have to give a justification. You have to tell the court, had I known this, that, and the other, I never would have made it. Sometimes people don't have justifications. Or sometimes their justifications are not halachically accepted. So there are certain times that you cannot nullify their vows. It would be very rare for such a thing to happen. But in the event that such a thing would happen, the case specifically, as the Gemara will explain, is she didn't go in front of a beis din, she went in front of one chacham. And the chacham couldn't nullify her vow. And therefore, she needed to get divorced. That chacham cannot marry her. Because people are going to say, you know why the chacham didn't find a pesach to nullify the vow? He wanted to marry her. That will be very much like today, very much but not the same. If a beis din gives a get, that the dayanim on the beis din should not marry that woman. Even though it's not exactly the same as the Mishnah will say in a moment. But it gives rumors. So the halacha here is the chacham that didn't nullify it should not marry her. However, we explained this case many times before. If a woman was only married rabbinically, we're speaking about a minor who was either an orphan, married by her mother or older brother, or a woman who's a yisayma b'chaya avia, that the father married her but she got divorced when she was a minor, and the father married her again while she's still a ktana. Married her off. Thank you again for that correction. He married her off. She has the power to retroactively nullify the marriage by doing miyun, by refusing the marriage. We will see later that there is a machlokes. Does she have to refuse it in front of a beis din or only in front of two witnesses? As the Gemara will clarify, regardless, the din will be the same. Our Mishnah holds miyun has to be done in front of a beis din. So miyana or chalitza was done in front of a court of three. The din will be is that any one of those dayanim yisa'ena could marry her. Why? Beis din, because he was part of a beis din, and people don't do these things for other people. Don't conspire together. Imagine, this alone is a terrible rumor that the dayan did it in order to marry her. And even if that would be true, we only say it if one person did something by himself. But if a group of people did such an act, a ma'aseh beis din, if one man wanted to marry her, the other two, or even the other one, would not conspire together. Weiter. Says the Gemara, one second. Hohi tiram yisa'ena, asked the Gemara, that what would be the case, not that the chacham was unable to nullify the vow. The husband nullified the vow. So she didn't have to get divorced. But then the husband died. Or then the husband divorced her. Then he could marry her. Now, that's number one. The chacham. Not the beis din. The beis din can marry her from the beginning. If a beis din was there. What case is the Mishnah speaking about? If we're only speaking about one chacham, can one person nullify a vow? In the name of Rab Chia bar Avin, in the name of Rav Amram, that Tana we learned from the Tanoim that Hataras Nedarim b'shloisha. Elot must be b'tlasa. So 1 second, Michshidi. A beis din? We learned in this Mishnah. Miyano ishecholza b'fanav yisa'enu b'pneishu beis din. There's no conspiracy with the beis din. Answers the Gemara lo'elam b'chad. The Mishnah has to be speaking about a one chacham who didn't find a heter. Ukad Amar Rab Chizda in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, which is the halacha that since Parshas Nedarim, right, Matois, it says Vaydaber Moshe el Roshei HaMatois, right, Chumash. So what's the question everyone asks? Moshe Rabbeinu spoke the laws of Hataras Nedarim to the Roshei HaMatois. Moshe Rabbeinu taught the Torah to whom? To all the Jewish people. And as we learned this together, it's also in Chumash Rashi, we learned this in the Gemara together. It actually happened, he came down off the mountain, and first he taught Aaron, and then he taught Aaron's sons, and then he taught the Shivim Zekanim, and then he taught all of the Jewish people. what's this Rashi Hamatais? We never find them, singled out. So Rabbi Yechanan explained the reason why the Rashi Hamatais were singled out. The heads of the tribes were Yachid Mumchim. They were experts. And this is the way the Torah is hinting to us that Hataras Nadorim that normally needs 3 could be done by the Rashi Hamatais, by a Yachid Mumchim. And that will be the case of the Mishnah. So Chuli says the Gemara time of the Beis Din. Why is the Mishnah saying that Miyun happened in front of 3? A Beis Din doesn't conspire together. Apparently, 2, maybe yeah. Habetrei loy, Maishnam hadetnan. We learned in Masechtas Gittin a similar concept, but we applied even to 2. We learned Edem hachasumim al stei mekach. 2 witnesses are signing off on a document. The document is testifying to the fact that the field or the house that belonged to you belongs now to me. Question is, can any of those witnesses later get by that field? Why not? Maybe the witnesses are Eidei Sheket and they conspire together in order to steal the field from the owner. We don't say that people conspire together. Now, by the way, over there, many people explain in Masechtas Gittin that if both witnesses together want to buy it, then we do have that suspicion because they're working together. But if one aide wants to buy the field, then for sure there's no suspicion because the other witness that won't benefit from the field wouldn't conspire with him. Or the same thing about get isha. If 2 witnesses sign on a document, they aid them on the get later, they can marry her. Aid them, you only need 2, you do not need 3. So it's not about 3, it's about more than 1. So the Gemara says, you're right. Even if Miyun would only need 2, and we'll see later opinions that hold that Miyun could be done, the refusal could be done in front of 2. The Mishnah wants to tell you that this Tana holds Miyun has to have 3. It's like a second side din. He, Gufa Kamash Milan, that Miyun needs 3. La Fukim Yamanda Omer, that Miyun is Bifnei Shnayim. Kamash Milan, our Mishnah, Miyun Begimel. Now continues the Gemara, the question was asked, and this question is both regarding this Mishnah of the Chacham and the previous Mishnah of, let's say, the agent, because if you remember 3 Mishnayos ago, when we began with this dinim of niton, of suspicion, there the Mishnah addressed that the suspicious adulterer should not marry her. If he married her, he should divorce her. But if a man was suspected of having a relation with a Goyish woman and she converts, he shouldn't marry her. But if he marries her, then he could stay married to her. That Mishnah addressed what happens if. The last 2 Mishnayos didn't address it. All the Mishnah says is the shliach who brings the get in Medina Sayam, he shouldn't marry her. The chacham who was not mater neder shouldn't marry her. So Yibaylu kanas ma'ushi yoitzi. If this chacham married her, what should you do? If the shliach married her, what should you do? So Rav Kahana says kanas moitzi, and Avashi says kanas eino moitzi. And Tana Lahu Rab Zutei in the yeshiva of Rav Papi, they learned that, listen, you shouldn't have done it, the lenient opinion. But if the shliach married her, if the chacham married her, they can stay together. Amru lei Rabbanan Ravashi. 1 second. Gemara oisvara. Do you have such a tradition, or do you have a logic that led you to this lenient psak din of einoi moitzi? Amar lohu masnison hi. I learned it from the Mishnah. What does it say in the Mishnah? Hanitan mishivcha. If there was a suspicion that a man was having a non-kosher relation with a non-Jewish slave woman, and later she became emancipated, or if a man was suspected of having a relation with a non-Jewish woman and she gets converted, the first Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, you shouldn't marry her. However, the Mishnah says, V'im kanas ein moitzi. But if they get married, you don't get divorced. What does that prove? Alma, turning to the Chava of Birenana, that if the only issue is a rumor, then Leimafkinon, you don't force a divorce. That's very unlike the case of a married woman, according to Rav, who there were witnesses that she had a relation with another man. That's a whole different thing. That's not called a nana. Or according to Rebbe, who paskins that based on a muchuar hadavar, you have to divorce your wife. That's something else. That's a din. But when it comes to the other things in the Mishnah, a man with a non-Jewish woman, so he shouldn't have married her, but the Mishnah says if he married her, then they should stay together. Hachinami, why shouldn't the shliach marry her? Why shouldn't the witness that said mace marry her? Why shouldn't this chacham marry her? Doesn't look good. So no, it's going to arouse a rumor. Okay, that's a reason why they shouldn't get married, but if they got married, loy mafkinon, then you don't force a divorce. And we'll stop over here.